Everyone is a star child, made of stardust and the infinite potential of the universe. This extraordinary feel is something in each of us clamors for freedom from the bonds of fear, conformity, and an ordinary life. Welcome to Dr. Durr's Living in the Sweet Spot, where practical tools and solutions from the intersection of mind-body medicine, science, and spiritual well-being awaken and empower you to live out your infinite potential, to live life in the sweet spot. Hello, everyone. I am your host, Dr. Balin A. Durr. And here in the sweet spot, we talk about those things that really matter, that take you deep, that awaken and empower you through mental wealth, defined as brain health, plus transformative thinking as the gateway to the greatest demonstration of your infinite potential. I believe that everything in the physical universe that we see, that we experience, that we encounter is just the infinite potential of the universe organized in a particular physical form. And because of that, I think that we all are infinite potential. We have infinite potential because we are infinite potential. And because we are infinite potential, we get to decide how we want to use that potential to demonstrate and create our experiences of this life. My guest today, Hilary Burns, teaches people how keeping it real, how being their real, authentic selves helps to free themselves in order to create the life that they love. Hilary graduated from the Wharton Business School. She was also the vice president of the Drexel Burnham, which was a Wall Street firm. She was a manager at Arthur Young, and she is also has been a systems consultant for internationally in Germany. So today I want to have you welcome my guest, and joining me is Hilary Burns, the creator and host of the Getting Real with Hilary Show. Hey there. How you doing? How you doing?
Great.
You know what? This conversation is overdue. It's long overdue. And I'm so glad that you're with me today in order to do this, because I think that, that the work that you do about bringing bringing our real authentic selves to this experience that we call life in order to have the life we love, as you like to say it, the life that we long for, freeing ourselves from conformity, right? Conformity and the bonds of conformity and fear is just so essential and necessary and necessary. So thanks for joining me today.
You're welcome. And why would you say it's necessary? I'm just curious. I know why it's necessary, but why do you say that?
Okay, so it's necessary because every part of the whole has its role and its contribution. So keeping it simply, the way I say it is this: I think a lot of people, uh, are say the liver that longs to be the heart. And what I mean by that is simply that if I'm the liver that longs to be the heart, number one, I want to be something that I was never designed and purpose for. And if I'm trying to be something other than what I am, then I'm going to find myself lacking, inadequate. I'm going to judge myself harshly. But the other part of it is that I'm also not going to be doing what it is I was designed and purposed for. And so therefore the whole misses out on that vital function. And another way that I say it is that is that Dwayne Wade, is he sitting over in a corner crying someplace because he's not small enough to be about, he's not built to be a ballerina? No, he was taking what he was made and designed for and using that to the best of his ability, right? Another simple way of saying it is, as much as people talk down on the anus, let that sucker back up and see if you ain't got some problems.
All right.
Right? Because
Yeah.
it's the stinky job. Nobody wants it. But the problem is, again, if you backed up, not only may you get constipated, but you're gonna get sick. And it's not taking, if that's not relieved, you can end up dying, right?
Right.
So just keeping it simple, keeping it real. That's
All right. All right. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Sorry. Before there was this huge plane. I don't know if you heard it. It was like a military aircraft going over here, so I couldn't hear anything. So that's why I was looking like I was being attacked. Felt like we
no,
were
you're
being
good.
attacked.
You're good. You're good.
Okay, good. All right, good. So what should we talk about here?
So we're talking about your important message
Okay.
of getting real, right? Your
Right.
show, Getting Real with
Yeah.
Hilary.
All right. Well, let me tell you about when I wasn't real. And I wrote this, my first book is called The Second Piece of French Toast. And
Wow.
that was, yeah, that was when it's a memoir. And what had happened was I kind of well, I was numbing myself. I thought I was fine. I was just like, fine, I'll be pleasant and people pleasing and all that. And really, I woke up one day, 30 pounds heavier, realized I had been numbing myself and I didn't like my life. And so the first part of getting real was
So
starting
was
to
it
talk
numbing
about it.
yourself with what?
Oh, food and alcohol. I mean, basics.
Okay. Okay.
But
To
I
the
just
basics.
the basics. You're emotional, eat, right? And
Okay.
so, but I didn't realize it. I thought, oh, all I had to do was lose weight and I'd be happy again. But really, it was that I wasn't in touch with my feelings at all. I felt uncomfortable. I'd grab something, nachos and margaritas. That was my one of my favorites. So that was the first part of getting real, was really admitting that, you know what, I don't really like what I was married. I didn't like the relationship. I didn't like my life. I didn't like our finances. And so that was part of was writing the book. Took me 7 years to get in touch with, what I really wanted and being able to eventually say that I wanted to get divorced. That was not easy. That was not what I had planned. I had to go through a lot of judgments I had about it. But really, my soul came through. And my soul, I would say, took me through that process because things just happened that had me file. I filed myself. I didn't have a lawyer. I just did it. And I came out like miraculously without any debt and being free. And that took something. That took getting real and not living in these false expectations that I had of myself, that you don't do that. You stick with it, So that was the first time when I really got real. And then another thing that happened was I used to spend a lot of time fixing myself because I thought I was negative. My ex used to say, well, you're just upset. You're the most upset person I know. You're just always upset. And I thought, you know, there was something wrong with that. So I was always trying to fix it. And then one day, um, I was in a course and they said, well, what if you didn't spend all your time fixing yourself? What would you do? I was like, what do you mean? Like, I could actually be the way I am. And so,
Who knew?
yeah, like that was kind of weird, but okay, let's try it on, right? And what came to me was being an inspiring or entertaining storyteller. Just came to my
Mm.
mind. And I was like, well, that would be fun, right? Because people always used to say you should tell stories. And but in the next second, it was like, well, you can't do that. You can't do that. So the judgment came in, the old patterns, what will people think? That's the thing when I realized, I'm a people pleasing, pleasant phony who tries to have people like me and puts on this whole fake persona of being nice when not always nice. I pretend to be, but I'm not. And it's exhausting trying to be someone other than who you are. So that's where the Getting Real with Hilary YouTube channel came from. Because I was just talking about it. I didn't know what to do. And my daughter was like, well, why don't you start a YouTube channel? And I was like, well, what's that?
Say,
So I
what's
figured
that?
it out.
And when was that?
That was might have been, I don't know, it's either 2017 or 2019. I can't remember. 2019 was right before the pandemic.
Okay.
Like, I don't, yeah, the years are getting mixed up scarily enough. So it was one of those years. Um, might have been 19, but my book was published in 2019. I know that December, right before the pandemic. It might have been right before that. So it hasn't been that long, but I just started recording stuff and putting my real self out there, the real, you know, I'm not good. I'm a troublemaker deep inside. I love making trouble. I love making people laugh. I love dirty jokes. I love all that stuff. But, when I'm my little good self, I'm not that. I try to be good. I try to become whoever I need to be with that person, right? And it's boring and it's exhausting. So being that
Mhm.
self and hitting send or publish each time was like, what are people going to think? And gradually I just kept doing stuff anyway. And you know what? I don't know what they're going to think, and I can't prevent them from thinking whatever they think, right?
And people come up with some of the craziest mess and some
Yeah.
of the stuff that they think.
Right. So that was like how that was all started. I had a blog, I had all sorts of stuff. I've tried a lot of things because I just love telling stories, and I decided to use myself as a human guinea pig. So because I figured, well, if I'm struggling with this, maybe other people are too. Maybe not everybody's Pollyanna positive and they need some negative Nellies. Right. Well, you didn't like this when I said this. I'm a half empty kind of girl.
Oh Lord. So and it's
But
not that
but
it's not
that's natural, but it's okay. Like I don't have to fix that. I can just make humor with it. It's funny. And there might be other people who are the same, who think there's something wrong with them that I can say, no, it's okay. We're supposed to be this way. It's a gift, you know? So that's the whole thing is turning. And this book isn't published yet, but this one is Your Bullshit is Your Blessing. And this one talks about that, how we can take what we think is what's wrong with us and use it as a gift and actually have fun with it instead of, having shame and thinking we need to hide it. And this will be coming out in the next couple weeks. So that's where I just put, I've spent my time developing these tools and techniques for creating freedom because I certainly wasn't free. Being a people pleasing, pleasant phony was not very free at all. So every time I come up with a new technique, it could be anything, anything. I love taking courses. I love reading. I love learning. And the more techniques I have, I try to share them with other people. So that's where that book came from. You want to, all right, while I'm on a roll, here's my second book that that's not a lovely picture. Yes.
it's a
Anyway,
beautiful picture, Hilary.
and two people. So this was,
Hilary Arno Burns.
yeah, Hilary, because I didn't want to be confused with the other Hilary Burnses. But so this took something to put that picture on there. I had two people tell me, you have to change your picture. Why? Well, it doesn't look like you anymore. Well, it never did. Look like that. So, all those kind of comments, worrying about what people think. Here it comes again. Maybe I should. Should I? Am I too old? Do I have too many wrinkles? Blah, 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 blah. And, all that stuff is like shedding that and getting back to trusting myself. But this book is about real talk. This book, the subtitle is How to Say the Things You've Never Said So You Can Have the Things You've Always Wanted. And it's about getting that stuff out that we don't say because we don't want to hurt somebody. We don't think we should. We have rules. We learned as a kid. You don't say that stuff. All those things have us stuck. So that's those are
So
my
so
yeah.
give me an instance, and I think that book, of course, is very much an extension of, or the show is an extension of the book in terms of the Getting Real with Hilary show,
Mhm.
where when you said that again, that you come up with these these techniques that help people free themselves to create the lives that they want, and that in this case, people get to tell their own their own unique, I said, their own unique, wonderful, authentic
Story.
stories
Yeah.
that, and in telling, by telling those their own stories, their own wonderful stories, that they actually inspire themselves. They inspire and they empower themselves. So what are some of the things that 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 people say that that's real, that's authentic, that that power, that empower, inspires and empowers themselves?
Well, part of the show is talking about things that people don't talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So some of these people have never really spoken about the things they're talking about, like being adopted. I had some people, a couple people who've been in jail, couple who've lost children, I mean, just amazing stories that they don't have a chance to tell, or, they're ashamed. A lot of times when you don't say, let me go back a sec. I did this thing when I first said something that I didn't think I could say and got free. And I presented it at a conference for global transformation. And what I did was I had people come and put something that they've never said on a sticky note anonymously. And then, we just put them on the wall, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people reported freedom. Like one guy said he had this problem for years. And after putting it down on the sticky note, he went and got help. Other
Mm-hmm.
people said stuff like, I know someone who was murdered. I know someone who's uh no, someone who murdered someone. Yeah. So things that they've never told anybody, things that were shameful, things that they were hiding inside of them. And it was, it keeps you from really being alive. So that's when I said, wow, what if we talk about things that people don't talk about? Because it gets us free. And if you know Brene Brown, she's like a shame researcher. And the things that we don't say, they become secrets. And my feeling is it impacts your vitality. So by having people tell their stories, they start, first of all, getting it out, and B, getting in touch with what's great about themselves and their accomplishments, and they get a whole new perception of who they are. And then if there's anyone listening who's also, maybe someone else has been in jail, maybe someone else was adopted and they don't talk about it, then that can inspire them to start talking about it, to get freedom, and to, if there's actions they need to take, get into action.
Right. So, so one of the things that then, I mean, you brought up a number of really great points. But one of the things you mentioned, Brene Brown. And so in terms of the research that she does, because I think that's also one of the great benefits that she brings, because she's a researcher, that some of these concepts, which people may not seem kind of abstract, brings research to support the validity of it. And so one of the things that's important for people to distinguish is there's a difference between guilt and shame. Guilt is I've done something wrong. Shame is I am wrong. And for me, identity is such a huge, important. It's foundational, really. To me, it's foundational to your life, because and it's like the foundation of a building. If the foundation is off, so is the building. If your foundation is off in terms of your identity, then your life's expressions are off, because the fruit is consistent with the seed. You plant apples, you're gonna get apples. If you plant apple seeds, you're not gonna get peaches. So if you think that you're a horrible, terrible person, then guess what kind of life you're gonna have? One that's consistent with that. And so I think it's important that, again, that we recognize that who we are is not what I do or what was done to me. That we're, depending upon your belief system, we're either human beings, or spiritual beings, not human doings or spiritual doings. And so if you recognize that the things that I do or things that were done to me, that because I am not that, then that can be changed in the next time, right? In the next moment. But who I am as a unique expression of the universe, organized in the energy of that organized to appear as me, that wonderfulness remains. And because the wonderfulness remains, then there's nothing again that's quote unquote wrong with me. So I don't need to fix what doesn't need fixing, i.e. me. I can quote unquote fix or change my thinking, my perspective, my doings, but who I am is already uniquely wonderful. So in that context, I can feel guilt if I do something harmful, but not shame because someone abused me or someone abandoned me or someone neglecting me. That's just their behavior towards me and doesn't reflect my own unique wonderfulness and value. So I think that's also the importance of that. And then, the other thing you brought up, I call it, in terms of our brain, is the little fear monger, right? That little part of the brain that is trying to keep the body safe. It focuses on keeping the body safe. And if your first priority is keeping your body safe, then your purpose will suffer. And your purpose suffers because you can't serve two masters. You cannot serve the master of ensuring the body's safety, and then serve also your authentic self at the same time, right? So again, we are these unique beings in this shell of a body, like the driver in a car. So if I'm busy saying what I need to say and being who I need to be in order to, as you say, please other people, i.e. be accepted, i.e. ensure my safety, because that's part of what being in the group and the crowd is, right? Is ensuring my safety. But at what cost if I'm not my authentic self, if I'm not true, if I'm not being real, if I'm not keeping it real, right? If I'm not telling the truth.
Right. And one of the things you said, if things have happened to people, like I had seems crazy, but an evolutionary astrology reading.
Hmm.
And
So no,
so
what's an evolutionary astrology reading? I think I know what that is, but please share.
so you go to your past lives and you
Mm.
see. So I had this one relationship that I just didn't make any sense. And why couldn't I let go of it? And she was like, oh, that's just your karma. Because so when it sounds crazy, okay, but whatever. If it makes sense, okay. So in my past lives, I wasn't treated well. I was killed, I was sold, I was doing, all sorts of things. So being treated badly was normal. So that was my karma in this lifetime, was to what do you call it? Elevate it, get past that, clear it up, or whatever the term is. So that's why I would attract it again. And until I can clear that karma out, it will
To
keep
pay,
happening. It doesn't even matter that it was him. So
to
I,
pay your
when you,
karmic debt.
yeah, or clear it, I don't even know what the word is, but like what you were saying, if bad things have happened to people, that could be their karma, and that could be their purpose in this lifetime, is to elevate that, is to get beyond it. Now, you could stay a victim. I was a victim for a long time. It's not a very powerful place. It's like a comfortable place in some way with your suffering, but it's not powerful. And
Mm-hmm.
in order to, even in my book, the pink one, the time when I really turned things around was when I took my power back. I was, suffering over finances. Well, when I finally went and opened up my own account and started putting money away and didn't necessarily tell my ex, who was my husband at the time, that's when I got my power back. My little construct in my mind was, you can't do that. It's not right. It's not honest. But my soul did it anyway, and that's when I got my power back. So we have these little constructs of what we can or can't do, and but I did it anyway, and that's where I got free. So when we can bust out of those constructs, you know, some are societal, some are cultural, you can do this, you can't do that. But when you can break out of it and do your real self, there's freedom. and it's uncomfortable. I compare it to, there's a Michael Singer book, The Untethered Soul. Have you read?
Untethered soul.
It's the
Yes, the
best.
untethered
And
soul.
he compares it to going a dog going through an electronic fence. So you bump up against, it's like painful, but if you go through the discomfort, you get to freedom on the other side. But it takes something because we're used to bumping up against it and stopping. We back up because so something doesn't feel right. But when you can press forward, like that first time I published the YouTube, boom, I got through the electronic fence by hitting send or publish or whatever it was. Just doing it even though it's uncomfortable. That's how we become real.
So, I love that the electric fence. You're breaking
That's
through
not
the
electronic.
electric fence. Yeah, that is, I love that.
Yeah.
That is awesome, right? Because it is so appropriate. And such a great metaphor
Yeah.
for um when we stop ourselves from moving through that which is painful, difficult, or uncomfortable. And how often do I hear people saying that making change is hard? And my response to them is, well, it's hard how you're living now. So which hard do you want? to
Right.
stay stuck in the hard that is and will not change unless you make some changes? Or do you want the hard of doing the work that you consider hard and difficult, but gets you to the place that you want to be? Right.
Mhm.
That's which hard do you want?
Right. Well, you
Yeah.
know what? Speaking up, my first story well, sort of my first story, but when my ex used to, I was upset for like a couple years. He used to call me his wife. I'm like, I'm not your wife. But I said that inside my head. I didn't say it out loud. And
Uh-huh.
when someone said, after I finally said something after 2 years, why don't you speak up? And I was like, what if he gets mad? We still have the kids. It was just like very uncomfortable. But one day I said, you know what? I can't stand this anymore. And I said, I want to tell you something. I don't know how to say it. And I started crying. And he's like, what? And I said, hate when you call me your wife. I'm not your wife. And he goes, oh, okay, then I won't. And I was like, well, that was easy. It was gone.
Mm-hmm.
So while it took 2 years to say it, it was gone in about 2 seconds and then I was free. And that's the kind of thing. Like we have these constructs of the electric fence, but it's not a real thing. I mean, I think with the dog it is. They actually get shocked, but we don't. We just have to move through it and say it even though something's going, don't, but we do it anyway, and then we get free.
Yeah, it's a to your point, it's um but the fact that it exists in our minds and our imaginations, and that's how people are living their realities, despite the fact that we're different people, right? And despite the fact that a certain something is what it is, but we have, different experiences of it. And one of my intentions too is to try to help people see the connections of things, and that how sometimes we're having the same conversation but using different languages. So,
Mm,
what I say in terms of when it comes to spirituality and science, to me, they are different languages for the same thing. So the way that when in English we call it a door, in
mm,
Spanish we call it la puerta, in French it's la porte. But there are different languages describing the same object, and to me that's what science and reality, and excuse me,
mm,
science and spirituality are. And the reason I bring that point up in particular was because I wanted to go back to what you were saying about past lives. So
mm,
how I connect that spiritual, right, to the physical, to the science, is that the first law of thermodynamics is energy can neither be created nor destroyed, it just transforms, i.e., changes into a different physical form. So, because everything in the universe at its core, at its essence, is energy, that means the energy that we are, some people would say, soul, or, whatever term that you want to use for it, that energy cannot be destroyed. So just because the physical body stops functioning,
Mhm.
the energy of the soul remains. So if that's the case, that energy can either be created nor destroyed, it just transforms, changes forms. To me, then it makes sense then that the energy of the soul would then incarnate into another body at another time. So so from that perspective, one, in the science of it, right? To me, there's incarnation, but a reincarnation, but there's also I've had conversations with the creator. And so, you have your book, and then I have my book, Heaven Abounds in You, The Journey to Joy. Yes, Heaven
Yeah.
Abounds
Oh,
in You.
wow.
The Journey to Joy, if I could get into the frame right. Yeah, Heaven
All right.
Abounds in You, Journey to Joy. And the reason I'm showing that is because um is and it's on Amazon, is the fact that included in there are conversations with the creators. Matter of fact, the title Heaven Abounds in You comes from one of those conversations when he said to me, Heaven abounds in you. And I was like, "Ooh, that's a great title." you know, in use. And I didn't think it was, because the word abounds, and it wasn't. So I, very much am connected to my spiritual. Now, that does not mean that I don't lose sight of it, or as God says, I said, I forget. And God said, no, you don't forget. You just disconnect. Now that you're reconnected, you just flow. But I certainly have my moments in my times where I disconnect. But the point is I remember in a conversation, asking God what was going to become of a relationship that I was in. And a few hours later, God says to me, "This is not your first lifetime together. This is not your last lifetime together. There will be others." And and I was like, okay, I'm done wondering about reincarnation. Um, and
Oh,
then several months later, um, a mom came in with with her adult child, and I was focused on connecting, and in the focusing on the connecting, um she was like, I was thinking about you. I said, I was thinking about you too. And you could feel the connection made. And then, Hilary, guess what was the next thing she said? Have you ever thought you lived another lifetime? so
wow.
yeah. So she and I go on to have that conversation, and about her lifetime. And spirit speaks to us if we're open, because spirit, if you call it energy intelligence, if you want to call it God, what you want to call it, Allah, Buddha, whatever you want to call it, there is the creative force of the universe that is the essence of everything, connecting everything, organized in a physical way to become us, the air, the water, and everything. And so it always is. It is eternal, as the essence of our being is always eternal. So we just and so after that conversation with her, I went home, I was meditating and looking for myself in time. Needless to say, I found myself. So and then have seen myself, why that particular person, why we've been so connected to each other, and he came to help me this lifetime because of our previous connections, which was the same kind of bond and the same kind of connection, in the sense of us loving and helping and supporting each other and being there.
Mm.
So it's that energy persists and carries on and continues, like you said, and shows up in subsequent in subsequent lifetimes. And so if we choose to go, I'm not touching that electric fence that I've created in my mind, and I need to dumb myself down. I need to minimize myself. I need to, in order to try to fit in with the herd, right? Then we lose the essence of the unique, wonderful uh, being that we are, that beauty, that brilliance, that creativity. And so we kind of, like I say, get caked over with the layers of life and forgetting who we are. And then that inauthenticity, it's gonna get painful. It's gonna get
Mhm.
uncomfortable. It's
Yeah,
that's the price we pay for not being real. So
right.
it's so you were talking about some of the stories some of your guests have shared, and and also talking about your own journey. So so what is that, what is that, looking like for you at this time in terms of some of the work that you actually do. You talked about the storytelling, but what's some of the other things that you do in order to help people get real?
Yeah, well, I have a course called Getting Unstuck,
Mhm.
and people would come and, they were stuck. And they would come. It was an 8-week course. And you know, they just by, sometimes just the first step of talking about it,
Mhm.
getting it out of our heads, like what you were saying, if when it's in our heads and we're not speaking it, it is the truth, or it seems like the truth, and we live as if it's the truth. But once we get it out, and the second week or the third week, they tell their story. And I say, pretend you're on Dr. Phil, just get it all out. And, we never do that. We never just get it all out because we're not supposed to, or we're supposed to be positive or whatever. And by getting it out, I say, first you're puking it out, and then we can create something new. So you're making room to create what you want by getting, to create on top of it. Like I used to try to accept myself, but I was accepting it even though it was wrong. So it never worked. But when I could finally just like get out, well, what are the things that are so terrible? When I finally got them out of my mouth, they weren't so bad. But then I could create really freshly from scratch without on top of the
So,
wrongness,
so, so can I ask a question? Because in listening to you kind of throughout, I think one of the biggest issues in terms of really a tool is, or the thing to do is to stop judging ourselves. I mean, you're not using those words, but to me, that's what I keep hearing kind of as the thread throughout what you're saying.
Well, I don't think we'll ever stop. But so for me, sometimes it's like, oh, there it is again. I can just allow it. And once I can allow it, oh, here we go again. Today, I think I told you I did a little TikTok saying I'm a vengeful psycho bitch right now, but because I knew I shouldn't
Wait, wait,
be.
wait, wait a minute. Hold on a
I,
second.
I
I
should
thought
be
it.
nice. What?
Wait a minute. And I thought it was something when one of my dear friends, he would say to me, "You're a shit stirrer." That's what he calls me, right? And
Oh,
I thought that
okay.
was, because you stir up the muck, right? And I thought that
Yeah.
was something. But today, oh, you're on a whole new level, Hilary.
Yes, because I was with this guy for work, and I went out of my way twice, all over there, blah 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 blah, giving myself, and the little person says, "Oh, I said, well, let's do this," and he goes, "Oh no, I have to go hang out with my mother," and I'm just like, I immediately go, "You ungrateful, whatever," and so on the way home, rather than pretend I wasn't feeling that way, I did a little, that's my therapy is I do TikToks and I post them. And I just said, right now I'm a vengeful psycho bitch and I want him to pay for this. But once I said it, I could start laughing and I was totally over it. I was over it. So by being able to accept it, but not pretend I'm not, which I used to do. I used to, well, that's okay. I would let people abuse me and treat me like crap and never say anything because I'm nice. I didn't want to be high maintenance, all this crap. And I didn't have very good relationships because I was treated poorly because I allowed it. Because I wasn't allowed to feel anything other than pretending, if that makes sense. So being able to
Well,
say,
so one, let me just say this. I think nobody can disallow you to feel what you feel. I think
but
it's
I
more,
used to.
yeah. But I'm
I
saying, but
thought it
nobody else can. But I'm saying, but nobody
right,
else can. You're in control of what you feel. However, I certainly get the fact that, because here's the thing, a lot of folks, again, in not taking ownership will say, you make me feel,
right,
bad, or you make me feel
right, 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 right,
inadequate.
right,
And I'm going to go, can I make you be an astronaut? No. So since I can't make you be an
right,
astronaut, I can't make you feel anything. The
right,
feeling is your response to your experience of me.
right.
That being said, obviously,
But
and even right,
I
even
wasn't allowing myself to be
mm-hmm,
real.
mm-hmm,
I was
mm-hmm.
pretending. And so since, this bullshit book really was fun to do because I brought like being negative, I made it cool, like being fun, like we could play with it, like let's go complain, all the things that like when you're trying to be Miss Prissy Pot, I would never complain, I would never be vengeful, but I was. But so it was all on top of it, if that makes sense. So being able to play with it, being able to say it and then play with it, I can laugh now. I can
Right. So I
accept, I
think,
can allow it. Allowing is a big word. Sorry, go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah, giving in terms of giving yourself permission.
Yeah,
So I think the other
to
thing
be myself.
too that you're doing in terms of the even in the TikTok or other things, like you said, you're allowing yourself to think and feel what you think and feel, but then you also discharge the energy of it by the TikTok or the writing it, like you said, on the post it and putting it up, you
Yeah.
know, uh, anonymously, because then of course since it's anonymous, people won't know it's you and therefore won't judge you. In the
You mean
sense of
with the sticky notes? Is that what you
yes,
mean? Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Right.
right. It's
Right.
it's being processed. It's a way of being processed. And let me just say, just also something about what you posted on TikTok today. I think from what you described, I think that description is more in keeping with the character in Fatal Attraction than it is you.
Yeah. No, I know. But being able to allow myself to be her for a couple minutes was really fun.
But
You know,
minus the
it,
knife, right? Minus the knife.
yeah, no, I wasn't
Minus the
doing it.
breaking
It
and
was
entering.
gone, but it was disappeared once I got to say it and then laugh about it.
But that's what I
And
said. But that's why I said minus. I said minus the knife,
yeah.
minus the breaking and entering, right?
Well, what I found is when we or me can allow myself, I'll talk about me, when I can allow myself to feel, whether it's sadness, anger, frustration, really feel it, it only lasts about 2 seconds or one. It's quick when you don't block it and resist it. So if you're mad, you say, I'm so mad. Oh, okay, thank you. I'm gone. But if you block it, you could be mad. I could be mad for 18 years, pretending not to be. It's fine. Ask my kids when they were growing up, I was not a happy person. I mean, I was doing the best I could, but it wasn't. There was always something wrong. And, well, come on, who left the lights on? Who did this? And they would be like, God, we were enjoying our day before you came in. What?
Ooh, ooh.
I was like, thought I was the good one. No, but, I would bring this mood. Something wasn't okay. And something's wrong. It's not fun to be around. It doesn't feel good. But until I could recognize it or until I became conscious of it. It's just the way I was. I wasn't
So
even aware until they said
so
that. Go ahead.
so finding some way to release that energy. So whether it's so one, allowing yourself to feel it, to think it, feel it, right? Giving yourself permission to allow it. Two, then finding some I would say constructive way to express it. in order to release that energy and not being stuck in it?
You know what? When I first started my show, I had 3 steps. Awareness.
Mm-hmm.
So until you're even aware, it's just life. So first you become aware, then like I accepted it. Okay, I'm aware I feel like a vengeful psycho bitch. Okay, now I'm accepting myself as a vengeful psycho bitch. And then action. I can laugh now. I can move on. I can just forget about it. I don't even know if that's an action, but I didn't have to get him back. Um, because he wasn't even doing anything. He was just going to beat his mother. I mean, what's your problem, bitch? But it was like, how dare you? It was just that first reaction. I could have it. And then I could take action to say, hey, we'll do it on Monday. Not a problem.
Okay, okay. And so yeah, and so just for any of my listeners, I want to say, because I'm one of those folks who's very much about that we are beings, that
Yeah.
identifying as the B word is
Oh,
for me is not something I'm gonna do, and it's not something that is okay for other people to do towards me. Just being real clear about that boundary issue for me.
you
Is
mean
that
bitch?
yeah,
That's the
the
B
B
word?
word? No, yeah, that
Okay,
ain't.
you don't like
Mm-mm.
that. Okay.
No, and you know what? People have normalized and normalized it and made it a positive. I guess is some way to reclaim it. I get what they're doing. I just know that that's not who I am. So
Right.
call
Well, I
yourself
would
whatever you
let
like.
well, I would let the B words take advantage of me
Mm-hmm.
for my whole life
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and not speak up. So me not allowing the B words to do that has been a big deal.
Yeah, yeah.
I
And
mean,
of
I was
course,
almost blackmailed at work by one, and thankfully I said, nope, no. I almost said yes, but I said no because I'm nice. I'm just trying to keep her happy, blah, blah, blah. She was nasty. So, there is a fine line too on the other side, but
and so here's the other thing
just
the other
saying.
thing that what you're but here's the other thing what you're saying. For someone like that, there's never anything in your niceness that you're going to do that's going to um uh get her to stop, right? It's never going to get her to stop. And
Right,
like the bully who chases you, at some point, if you don't stop running from the bully, what's going to happen is the bully keeps chasing you. And at some point, you're going to have to stop. At some point, you're going to have to stop and say, you're going to have to stop and you're going to have to fight. Right now, fighting doesn't necessarily, in this case, mean literally throwing hands. But in your case, you have to put up the boundaries that say, no, I'm not going to do that. The other thing too that I have found is that really we mistreat ourselves first before we allow other people to. And because if I think I'm not good enough, not deserving, then when you show up and treat me badly, then you're just treating me in a way that's consistent with what I think about what I think I'm owed or due or deserve.
right.
Right. Because if
It's
I
normal.
believe that I'm a good person and that it's not okay for you to call me the B word or do other things like that, then I'm gonna draw a line in the sand and I'm gonna set the limits and the boundaries with you. And I'm gonna tell you that's not okay. And I'm gonna tell you the consequence of continue to do so, if you know what I mean. So, so,
Yeah.
so, so what is
I
so
wasn't calling you one. Did you
hmm?
think I was calling you one?
Absolutely not.
Okay, good.
Absolutely. You were
I was
talking about
calling me.
yourself. No, no,
I was
no.
joking.
You
Yeah.
were you were talking about you. That was real. That was really clear. What I wanted to do though for the audience is just share what my thoughts and beliefs about that and how I hold me and how I hold other women. I'm just saying how I hold also how I hold other women and
But when you,
in their unique wonderfulness and their
right,
own unique gifts and beauty and creativity. that's how I hold women, including myself.
Right. But when you say you have to put up boundaries, you don't have to.
I say
It's
me, I
good
have
to.
to.
You do. Okay, you have
I
to.
do.
I'm thinking of those women who, you know, are abused. They have a nasty husband or boyfriend who beats them or
Or
something.
significant other.
Yeah,
It
and
might be
you
same, it
say,
might be
hey,
same
you need to
gender.
put up boundaries, but they're terrified or they know what's going to happen or whatever. I don't, I don't know. I don't know
I mean,
how they
if
would.
you wanted to
I don't know
stop,
how
you
they
have to
would
put up
do it.
boundaries.
Yeah,
If you wanted
right.
to
But how
stop,
does someone like that stop if they're going to get? I think they have to leave or hide or something. But anyway, that's just a different topic. But I, I feel for those people that are in that situation.
oh, of course, I'm just saying that if you want the behavior towards you to stop, you have to put up boundaries. And
Right.
sometimes in that case, in those instances when it's potentially harmful or deadly, it may
Yeah.
mean just removing yourself from the situation, right?
Right. However, they have to.
But you gotta believe that you are able to take care of yourself and um
By
and
yourself.
call upon the abundance that is the universe in order for you to be able to take care of yourself as an adult, right? And part of the difficulty is that many people, speaking of being stuck, are stuck in a belief that they're still small, weak, dependent, and vulnerable. And so they look to another adult because that's what we did as children to meet our needs and to take care of us. But if you don't mature yourself in mind and emotions and perception of yourself and your abilities and your powers, then you persist in doing it the way and seeing it the way that you did as a child, denying that you have the power to free yourself, that you have the power to
Mhm.
take care of yourself, to fulfill yourself, to live the life that you want. So just what's a couple of other things that you might do in order to kind of help people get stuck and then, of course, tell us about maybe some new projects you got going on, seminars or trainings, or just,
Sure.
what's happening there. So yeah, some other ways someone might get themselves unstuck.
Well, I think to get yourself unstuck, like I do this weekly planning call, and people come on, they set a goal, and then they come on, and when they get stuck, they start. If they come on and talk about it, they will get unstuck. They just will. So that could be in my listening, that could be in my training, but when people come to me, they get unstuck because we're talking about it. I am really good planner. If you want to get something done, I will create a plan with you. When you're not in action, we'll figure out why. We will remove those obstacles, but you got to talk to me. You can't escape. You have to come back and say, "Hey, I didn't do this." It's okay. I'm not going to judge. I'm not going to judge you. But if you really want to get something done, you need someone to hold you to it, even when, especially when you don't want to be. So that's one of the things is, I had a friend who she wanted to do a yoga event. She'd been talking about it for years. And
Mhm.
finally, she was the one that came on the show. By getting into the course, she did it. She had her yoga thing, and now she's putting on yoga retreats. But she was stuck. And in the conversation, she got unstuck. So, that's one of the things I'm doing if anybody's stuck. And people didn't like that word, but really, we all get stuck. I get stuck every day. But by talking about it, I get free. And then I really get to keep doing. When we started these shows, it was very uncomfortable, right? When I first got my equipment, I I couldn't even take it out of the box, but doing it anyway and having that structure to have you do the things you're afraid to do, the things you don't think you know how to do, that's where I can help. And all they have to do to schedule a time with me, my Real Talk book, we have a little website for it, Real Talk with Hilary with 1L.com. They can go buy the book if they haven't gotten it. They can take the Real Talk quiz to see how much they do speak up, and then they can set up a time with me and I'm happy to talk to them and see, what are they up to? What are they about? What do they want help with? And really get them on the map going. It could be a relationship that's not working. It could be a career, a project, Some people, they want to clear their clutter and they're just not doing it. Anything that's getting you, that's zapping your energy, like you were talking about the creative force, it blocks your creative force when you're stuck, when you're not moving forward. So let's get you unstuck and get you loving your life again, you know?
Yes, and by being real and telling one's stories, right? So the other thing that I heard in terms of getting yourself unstuck is that is that formulate an action step, right? Whatever that one thing is going to be. And then also having someone that you can be accountable to for taking the step or not. I think the other thing is that's a part of that is having an understanding of what your why is for doing it or not doing it, and the how. Because what I know to be true is you have to know the why and the how in order to change the what is
Hmm.
how I describe it. And
And
so
one,
by
yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Now, one of the ways that I do it, also, it's this backward planning technique that I learned. So
Mhm.
we actually start with you've done it. 90 days out, you've done it. And we go backwards. So you're not looking forward to see, well, how am I going to do it? No, you've already done it. And how did that happen? And it doesn't always, it never happens the way we say. But if you don't give up and if you keep, kind of uncovering what's in the way, you will get there. You might not get there in the 90 days. I had a guy, he put together a glider, a wood glider. It took him a year, but he did it. There have been some goals that I haven't hit in the time that I wanted, but I've hit them, so you don't give up. And sometimes we have unfulfilled or whatever, our expectations aren't met. And I used to stop when they weren't met. So,
Yes, yes. So again, and there's a scripture that basically says, "Is act as though if it is already done." So
yes.
when you're saying is it's already done, and by saying it's already done, what you're doing is the energy in the universe that is the essence of everything. You set that into motion in order to begin to uh, take the shape of so that it appears in your physical existence. So, in saying that it is already done, that's what you're doing, and then also obviously taking the steps in order to then bring it into the physical world. So I love that. And
And what do we have time? One other thing.
go ahead.
Something that stops a lot of people, especially me, is how. I don't know how. But when you put it in your subconscious out here that it's already done, you don't
Mhm.
need to worry about the how. Your subconscious mind thinks it's really done because you're acting like it is, and it'll go to work for you. It's unbelievable. But
Right.
well, you have to believe it, and it's hard to sometimes because we're so at least but when I can really, like, I had these first quarter numbers and I was like, I didn't know how. I did not know how, but I kept picturing myself going, we did it, we did it. That Friday, stuff just showed up and we did it. And I was like,
Yes.
really works because I could not, the night before, I could not have told you how that was going to happen. I couldn't
Yep.
have, but it did. It was amazing. Yeah.
So the example that I use for myself in order to help me kind of get through my being stuck, and I share with other people is when I was in middle school, I made the decision to become a doctor. So at that point, I didn't know what it took. I didn't know the curriculum. I didn't know what schools. I didn't know what the requirements were. I didn't know what tests I was going to have to take. I didn't know how long it was. I didn't know how much money it was. I didn't know any of that. What I had though, I didn't have the knowledge and the wisdom or the money, but what I had is belief in myself and my
Mm.
abilities and the tenacity in order to do it and to get it done. So again, what you're saying is believe in you and be willing to take the next step, and you'll figure out the how and get the resources as you go. That's also what I hear. So I just
But
I just want
are we
I
done? Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, I just want to thank you, of course, for being being a wonderful guest. This has been an awesome conversation, and I think one that will not only touch people, but will help them be their real, authentic, truthful selves. That will help them get unstuck and understand that when you're not your real self, not only do you keep yourself in pain and don't serve you, but there's all the rest of us that miss out on your wonderfulness. And so by not being your real self, there's also not only do we miss out, but in some respects that you may not even know or understand or recognize, then the whole struggles, the whole, it has a negative experience or suffers. Like I said, like, the anus, when it gets backed up, you're going to have some problems. The whole has some problems when we are not our real, true, authentic selves showing up and demonstrating our wonderfulness and therefore living the lives that we love. And with that, my goddess Hilary sister, in this world of creation and inspiration and empowerment. Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
you are more than welcome. And this has been Dr. Balin A. Durr, awakening and empowering you to live out your infinite potential, to live life in the sweet spot. Thank you for joining us today in the sweet spot. Share, follow, and like us on social media. To learn more, please visit balinadurrmd.com, spelled BALINADURRMD.com. Join us next week, and remember, when you heal your mind, all things are possible.